Okay, so here we are. We are in our final stages of setting up our layout. And we have already created the structure HTML, added some colors and some padding and CSS so that we are almost to the point where we can start laying it out, which is in this tutorial video. So we need to move the welcome to the left and the aside that has two different areas over to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and move this. I'm probably, maybe we do need to see our little wireframe so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now what you need to know is that our wrapper, we decided, was going to be 960 pixels wide. And because it contains, or it wraps around all this content, all of the rest of it on the inside is about 960 pixels wide. And the reason why I say about is because if you remember from our box model discussions or tutorial videos or the content in the course, it's not just 960 pixels, it also accounts for the padding on the left and right. So technically it's 960 plus 20 plus 20. So that it means it's 1,000 pixels wide. So all this stuff in here though, because it has that padding, it's actually 960 inside of here. So anything that's inside of a parent tag, like the wrapper tag, or the div tag that has the ID of wrapper, it's automatically going to take the width of whatever is in that. It's going to take the width of its parent element. That's what I should say. Okay, so what does this mean for us? Well, we want the featured and events area to both be the same width, and they shouldn't be nearly as big as this section. So instead of saying the event should be 400 pixels and the featured image should be 400 pixels, what we're going to do is we're going to say the aside should be 400 pixels. And because these two are inside of the aside tag, they will automatically be 400 pixels as well, or thereabouts. So let's come in here and say the aside, and let's go ahead and make the aside just white for right now so you can really see it. All right, so there's the white that shows the aside. And in that aside, we're going to go ahead and say width of, well, let's just make it 300 pixels. So now you can see that events and featured image are automatically 300 pixels, or again, thereabouts, because we're not including any margins or padding or borders yet. But now it's looking more like a slimmer sidebar. So we need to make some space for that sidebar. So we need to make our section area also a specific width. So we know our website is 1,000 pixels wide, and we made the aside 300. So we have 700 to work with, and we kind of want a gap in between. They don't need to be touching. So I'm probably going to make the section about 600. And you can play with these. Just know that if all of a sudden one goes above and below after you float them, it's because they're too wide. Okay. So I forgot my semicolon. I'm going to put that there. So now you can see that this section area is 600 pixels and this is 300 pixels. And now we need to get this to float up here. So what we're going to do is we are going to come up here to the section area. And the only way that floats work is if they have widths. So I'm going to go ahead and do float. And I want this to float to the left. And there you go. So all of a sudden we see that the white top of this aside isn't showing, and that's because it kind of went under there, because some structure tags don't recognize floated elements, but usually text does, so that's why it's still sitting underneath here. But we're going to fix this by saying the aside, instead of not floating, it should actually float, and this time to the right. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. We've got our section to the left and our aside to the right, but all of a sudden we have this footer that went rogue and it went underneath, and technically it's doing what it's supposed to do. The footer tag doesn't recognize floated elements, but the text that's in it does, so that's why it still looks like it's underneath. But when you see it do something like that, what you need to do is put clear, oops, not cloth, what the heck, clear both, and then it'll sit underneath it. So now our structure is pretty much working how we want it to. We need to add some margin things in here, like I don't necessarily want my navigation to be touching the logo or the slideshow, so I'm going to come up here to the nav and do margin, and I could do margin top and margin bottom, but if I just do margin 15 pixels, you can see that it's putting it all the way around it. But if I do 5 pixels and 0 pixels, ooh, what did I do? What did I do? And 0 pixels, what this is doing, say the top and bottom should be 15, but the left and right should be 0 pixels. So that's exactly what I wanted. Oops, no, that's not what I wanted. So I'm probably going to copy that because I like to keep it consistent. You see how everything is lined up perfectly here. Probably going to keep a margin of 15 pixels for all of these. The header doesn't need it because it's having the nav margins, but the slideshow might need it because it has these things underneath it. But maybe it'd be better just to put it in this section area. Now you can see that it jumped there, and then we can put it here. And now those things are lining up, but there is a little breathing room. And I think we have, and then because we added it to the section, that margin 15 pixels on the bottom, it's always going to push this down by 15 pixels. So I think we are pretty darn good to go. This is the structure that we see here. Now, no website should look like this. Like, honestly, it's so ugly right now. But what you would do at this step is just start taking out that color. Now, you could do it here. And I will show you how to do it here, but just in my opinion, I would leave it like this for a while until you're really ready to start doing some of the styles. Make sure that you have this set up exactly the way you want it so that for your next page, you can copy this and get rid of the things that you need, like the structure that you don't need. So we'll talk about internal pages in a little bit. I think I went too far with that. So right now, I'm just going to show you how to take the color out. Just be wary. You don't want to take this out until you're really ready for it. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete all these colors. So aside, background color. Okay. So the wrapper I actually want to be white. So here's my site. So now that's going to freak you out more because now it looks like there's nothing in your site, but I promise you there is. We just need to actually start adding things like putting the logo in here and putting the navigation and making it your font style, your font size. We'll center it. We'll do some cool hover effects if you want to make them look like buttons or drop down menus. We're going to actually add, a big hero image in here or slideshows if you want to. So once we start adding the color from images and fonts in here, it's not going to look so empty and so not like a website. Okay. So the only thing that I will change for right now, because I don't have a pattern ready or anything like that, is I will change the body background. So I'm going to do body and I'll do background color. Let's just do purple. Okay. So there we go. And this blue is not real. It's just showing you what I have selected. So I'm like in the wrapper or something. So there we go. There's the website right now. You can see that there's this little gap and it's just something that's built into the browser. It always adds this 10 pixel margin to the body. 10 pixel padding to the body, not a margin. Yeah. And so we could get rid of that with something called the universal selector, which zeroes out the default margins and padding for everything, which is actually, it solves a lot of problems in the long run. And it's a trick that you learn as you start really getting into building websites. So we could do that, but what it does is it takes out all the padding and margins for every single thing in your website. So you have to add them all back in. So like this padding and margin that separates the H1 from the paragraph, it would be gone and everything would look like it was squashed. So it tends to add more work, but it gives you more control over everything in your site. So I think that's a little bit far beyond a Web Design 1 class. So for me, I would just fix, if you don't want this top area, I'd come in here, see, and I didn't put the semicolon. I keep doing that. So I'm going to put padding top 0 pixels. So it just gets rid of that. And of course, that didn't work. Why aren't you working? What are you doing? Maybe it's margin top. That can't be it. 0 pixels. Ah, there we go. Margin top, 0 pixels. So, is that right? Why is it being weird? Okay. So now you can see that there is no gap at the top, which I really like. I like it to be like that for the, well, that's how I designed this. Maybe you designed it a different way. So technically this is ready to start adding content. It doesn't look like I swear though, it will be correct when you actually start adding your content and your colors and things like that. So from here, you're going to want to start putting in your Google font for your H1 or all your heading tags. You want to start styling, you know, the line spacing, the color of your paragraph in OL and UL. And you're going to want to start, like if for the featured image here, we know it was 300 pixels. So go find your featured image, make it 300 pixels, and start popping it in here in the code. So I'd come over here, and instead of having add featured image here, I would put something like my H3 and put featured image. Let's say this was for portfolio. And then I would put P image. Image. Why is it doing it? Yeah, whatever. Okay. Source. And then I don't know what the image is, so I would call it like image.jpg. If I actually had it in here, it'd show up, but it's not going to show up. So, and I would put it in there, and then you can see this little broken, but now I have my H3 in there, and I can style that, make it purple or whatever my color scheme is. So this is where you want to be at with the structure of your website. So again, your website's not going to be exactly structured like this, but hopefully these principles of showing you the float left and float right will help you to understand how you can do things like that. Or like in the footer, if you wanted your copyright to be on the left and your social media icons to be on the right, create the footer tag, put 2 divs in there, one with the ID of copyright and one with the ID of social media icons, and float the copyright tag to the left and the social media icons to the right, and make sure they both have a width, and they'll be able to sit side by side within that footer containing tag. So you're going to have to think a little bit outside of the box and apply these principles to your own specific layout, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll continue this tutorial video series by showing you how to add some navigation in here, maybe how to add a slideshow, all that good stuff. So keep watching.